From beautiful downtown Sacramento, it's time for Beach Blanket Fort Bingo.
Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. Beach Blanket, Fort Bingo, Fort Bingo. Spazzy's got a show when you really want to know what's going on. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Beach Blanket, Fort Bingo, Fort Bingo. Art and music, golden blue, and your favorite comics too. Grab a spot and settle in, 'cause it's high time we begin. Beach Blanket Fort Bingo Podcast. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Don't say goodbye, 'cause you're the one that I need. Don't say goodbye.
Hey everybody, my name is Steve Schnee and welcome to Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. We have a very special jam-packed episode today, but before I introduce our very special guest, I'd like to introduce my co-host. He's known for the hit singles Show Me the Way and I'm in You, and he starred in the critically acclaimed motion picture Sgt. Pepper's Lonely. Oh no, I'm sorry. That's my intro for Peter Frampton. This guy here is much taller and his name is Ronnie Barnett.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Good to be here.
Now, our special guests today are the three gentlemen that form the band Shoes, and they've recorded some of the greatest pop albums of our generation. They are legendary, they are iconic, they are the personification of cool, and they are joining us here in the Blanket Fort today. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for a warm round of applause for Jeff Murphy, Gary Klebe, and John Murphy. How are you all coping during these COVID days? And have you had time to write and record new material either together or apart?
Well, we're coping well. I think we're all vaxxed. We're all, we're safe. We can finally get together and be in the same room without doing our Lone Ranger impersonations. But I know that we've always got snippets and bits that we've worked on. I know Gary's got a whole bunch in the pot right now.
No, I recorded a solo record.
Wow.
It's finished, but don't know how it's going to be released yet. But in the meantime, we're all working on songs for the next record right now.
And John?
Oh yeah, writing. I mean, as you know, and I've never made anything different than that. I'm not the engineer, so I have my stuff and I come in with it, whereas Jeff's got his thing at home, Gary's got his thing at home that we use for our stuff, and so that they'll just make call it a demo, call it whatever. They'll lay down their ideas, where I come and I grab one of them and say, okay, I'm going to do this demo, and here it is. So that's the main difference between, only that I don't have it on tape or whatever you want to call it yet. I have things. I look at this like there's a shelf in my head, and I put these things up there and I go, oh, what's this? Oh yeah, right. This one needs this. Oh, what's this? Oh yeah, this one. That's honestly what it is like, until we decide, hey, listen, we're going to do this project like we did with the last Ignition. Then you go, okay. And there are things, I'm sure that we all have things that you have in your head for, could be a long time. You hear about major artists that say, oh yeah, I used to read that McCartney. He'd say, yeah, I had these two lines in my head for years. I go, really? Well, I can see what that kind of is. And you think, well, I remembered it, but I just didn't, finish it. So
yeah.
Until with me, it's always been, until we decide we're doing a project, I don't get down and dirty and finish, whereas, I mean, Gary and Jeff, I mean, one good thing now is, of course, the phones, you can sort of hum it out, strum it out a little bit to have a little more, so you don't forget. You can write it down on a piece of paper. Later you go, wait, I don't read music. What was I talking about? But if you have just, then you've got that to sort of go on.
Yeah.
That's good for me. That's great for me.
Yeah, exactly.
John, ironically, you not being the technical member, you have the high-tech Zoom background.
Yeah, I know.
That's because he's in the witness protection program.
Ronnie, I was just gonna say, honey, put that. Yeah, I'll be put that back. Just say this is my new spread, but now you've blown my cover. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
When John was talking about, the convenience of having a phone to hum into to remember ideas, we were talking about one thing that's going away is notes. Like you would see, I mean, obviously we're Beatle fans, and reading something like I Me Mine by George Harrison, where he would show pictures of the napkin that he started writing the lyrics for a particular song on, or letterhead from a hotel. You don't have as much of that going on now because people cut and paste their lyrics on their computer instead of writing it down with pen and paper.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a shame that you don't get that peek behind the scenes kind of thing. Even with ourselves, John and I were talking the other day that the longer we go, we don't have as many demos per se, because now you can take a file, and if you capture something that you like in the demo stage, you just bounce it, because it's digital, you just bounce it up to the main recording and work off of it. So so it's not a completely separate recording like it used to be.
I get cold, I get shivers up my spine. Baby, leave me where it's warmer. Watch you in my car. Make you feel so older. Boys can show their love if they keep it. Boys don't lie to you when you play around.
When you're by yourselves, do you ever reflect back on this great body of work that you've released, or do you tend to just focus on the present and not really think about Black Vinyl Shoes or Present Tense or any of the albums?
Yeah, I think we all do. I think there's times when sometimes I just wonder if it was a dream that all that stuff happened. Then I'm gonna wake up in my college dorm and it was just a dream I had about the future of what I really wanted to do. Yeah, I would think we do reflect all the time, and kind of we relate the way we do things to how we used to do them, how much the whole process has changed, and how we go about the construction and the creative process. Like John was referring to demos. Well, we don't really do demos anymore. We just do it as though it's the final finished product, and we just keep changing it until the demo becomes the final. And in the past, we'd be limited on tracks, and that wasn't possible. We're limited to as few as 4 tracks. So process has changed quite a bit for us.
Yeah.
But no, I think we go back, and with what we do, we put it in perspective to what we did at one time. We have a lot of fans of the early stuff we recorded, particularly Black Vinyl Shoes. And that was a result of the limitations we had. It wasn't like the sound we had wasn't what we necessarily wanted. It's just the best we could do. Yeah. And we wanted the best in production and stuff we heard on the radio, not everything, but it was really the result of the limitations, and just turned out that way. People like it the way it is, that's great, but we weren't going for that sound necessarily.
Speaking of Black Vinyl Shoes, you guys, can we talk about the cover of the German edition? I don't know if it translates how yellow this came out. But I'm sure you remember. Did they just print them and they came out bad, but we're stuck with them?
They printed black and yellow, I guess, right, John?
The yellow album.
Yeah.
We were shocked when we saw it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what that was about, why that turned out the way it did.
Yeah.
Obviously it was a takeoff of the American version, but one thing that happened when we were in England recording Present Tense, we went to one of the Virgin Superstores in London, and they had a copy of that album, but it was the version on Sire Records, and it dawned on us that we had never licensed to Sire. And what had happened was it had been licensed without our knowledge. And here was this version on a completely different label, which surprised us. It was a little shocking. So there's all kinds of versions out there that pop up every now and again. And sometimes you know about them, sometimes you don't.
talking about that album, there's been, you know, several covers of it, and like, what is your favorite cover? I mean, the Jaundice version that he just showed, or you know, or is it that version? I mean,
Mm.
what tends to be your favorite cover of Black Vinyl Shoes?
That would be mine.
This one?
me too.
The original would be mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't know if you guys recall where we led to change the front cover by a label at the time.
Like PVC
and
or
the
something?
reissue
I
PVC.
don't
Did they?
remember
Did they
if that was
request that?
something we wanted to do, or we I think we wanted it different than the original cover. I mean, we supplied the artwork to them for the PVC reissue, so
Mhm.
it must have been our idea to do it.
Yeah.
Must have been.
I'm
In
guessing.
my defense, because I've heard people say, "What in the hell is that?" I was you know, out of school, and you know, fresh out of school, and my thing was illustration, and that's what I wanted to do. So that actually, the original is brown sepia. The original is brown.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we did this black vinyl and brown. So then we had to have it, you know, changed into a black and white kind of thing. But yeah, the original, which I have, was on a paper that I liked, and I used to do sepia ink. That's what that was. So,
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah.
Going back a little earlier in this, you guys met in high school. Is the story true that you actually decided to form the band and then you learned to play your instruments?
Yeah. Well, I'll just say this. If you guys correct me if I'm wrong, Gary and I, who were a pack of buddies, there was a bunch of us that we hung out from school, and Gary and I he drop me off and we'd have conversations about music. Now, just general stuff about how we felt like things are changing. This was early 70s, man, you know, and saying, oh, you know, we miss this and this and this. Neither one of us could not nary play or lick, you know, but I said, you know, my brother has this tape machine that you can do sound on sound, meaning you can build on tracks. You can, you know, one person, two people, whatever, mult all this stuff. And that was, I think that was interesting to Gary. And so he came over and we literally just kind of banged around, and then we'd say, let's do it again. Gary had a guitar that he knew a chord or two, and just to hear this back, we said, wow. And then we thought, well, wouldn't it be great if we had started a band? And there was this sort of fantasy that he went back to school, and we'd write letters about this, that it was initially Gary and I. It was like, you know, we were this stupendous act that we hadn't, you know, we were fantasizing. But then, you know, more and more, you know, you want to do, like Gary said, with the sound with black vinyl, you do it as good as you can do at the time. You know, we weren't trying to sound this. And I think that part of the general buzziness in guitars from black vinyl was, you know, we didn't think of ourselves as players. And in a lot of ways, we still don't. I mean, when you match us up to somebody that goes, hey, man, play so-and-so. Okay, you know, or change the key. Okay, and we go, huh, wait a minute.
What's the key?
Yeah. Right. So
Yeah,
the good thing about this is that the three of us really learned, we were pretty much ground zero. And we learned, if somebody knew something, figured out something, they'd pass it on, a chord or whatever that it was. So but I mean, we were absolutely in the basement on this.
One thing that was really life-changing as a musician was Gary showed me how to play bar chords. And that changed everything. You know, suddenly you went from playing cowboy chords from Mel Bay to bar chords, and it just changed everything. Then now you can do something.
Where can I escape the sorrow? Only in my sleep. When awake, the feeling haunts me. Only in my sleep.
John, did you choose the bass, or was that kind of thrust on you because the other two guys played guitar?
Right. No. I was happy to play the bass. And, you know, really, as being big Beatle fans that we all are, to me, McCartney made it safe for creative people to play the bass. It wasn't just necessarily, oh, you take the bass. I thought it was cool. I still do. And then when we would go out and locally, we would see Cheap Trick. Now this is back way in the back when they were just playing clubs, and when I saw Tom Peterson play Thunderbird, when we all saw them play, it was like, wow, what's that, you know? But no, I have no problem playing. I like playing the bass. Yeah.
Well, John, you've always said that the bass is the most important instrument in the band.
And the bass player.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. John,
Number one.
Honey, you probably agree.
a friend of ours had borrowed some money from John, and he was a bass player, and he gave John a bass as payment. Was that your first bass? I don't recall.
You're talking about that cheesy Hofstra copy that from Chip?
Was that the one? I
Well,
don't remember.
no, I bought some cheap thing in a I don't know, a thrift store. It had no name on it. Remember, it was real heavy. It was a Fender-ish. Remember, Gary?
Yep.
Sunburst or something. That was I think the first thing.
That was
and
your first one?
Yeah, it was real heavy. It was a Fender wannabe, I think, you know.
I mean, being back at that time, and you know, it was hard to get a decent instrument for inexpensive. I mean, now the quality has really come up, and for $100 to $200, you can get something that's really pretty good.
And you know, these
Back then-
kids, you're right. You know, you can get something really decent, and you know, I say back, or many years really, that you buy an inexpensive guitar, the action is, you know, up an inch. I mean, and it hurts to play, and these kids would stop because it's a pain. But yeah, nowadays you get a really couple $100, you can get a really nice little Japanese or Chinese, whatever it is. But it's so you're more apt to stick to it, I think. Kids.
Yeah. In the beginning, was it easy for you guys to play each other your new songs, or did you get a little anxious doing that? And has that gotten easier over time?
I don't think so. I feel just as nervous now as I ever was.
Yeah.
That's my biggest obstacle. What do those guys think as I'm doing it? I'm thinking, how are they going to react to this? And it's a nervous moment. Nothing's changed as far as that goes. I have no more confidence now than I did back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was when we were feeling it out, like oh God, like Gary says, singing in front of each other, or what we're writing with the you know, you didn't want to do something.
Yeah, we would never sing in front of each other. That's a good point.
Yeah,
we would have to put it on tape. We were too embarrassed to sing to each other.
I mean, we had a long. I mean, now there's a lot we can sort of, you know, we know, like if we're doing backing vocals, we know what we're doing, you know, for at least the way we do it. We just get in that boom, we can do it. And but yeah, it was a long period of feeling, what are we? We knew what we wanted to be, you know, as an image, or what kind of music we wanted to play, because that was based around conversations that we just had about, gosh, this stuff seems to be going away. And remember, this is pre-disco. It got worse. You know, it got worse. We thought it was bad in the early 70s. That was nothing compared to what was soon around the corner, you know.
Baby, I have lost you. I wasn't careful. You are gone. It must have happened when I looked the other way. Nothing means more to me now. Nothing means more to me now than you do, babe.
Heads or Tails was the first thing you guys recorded as a band, and I guess it was only 4 acetates. So do each of you still own your acetates, and do you have it put away somewhere? Or
I never got one.
I never have one either.
You guys wouldn't give me one or something. I don't know, but I
no, I don't have one. Gary doesn't have one.
You know,
Jeff?
what it was I had gotten this record cutter. It's a 1950 Meisner record cutter. And there happened to be a local electronics store that sold the audio disc lacquers, the 10-inch acetates, which was crazy that they would do that. And so I was experimenting, trying to figure this machine out, and we printed up, I can't remember if we made 3 or 4, and they were really horrible quality, and they were in mono, and it was 10 minutes on a side. So when we put these together, and I glued them, and when you cut literally cut the chip, you had to pull the thread off by hand, because there was no vacuum system like on a Neumann lathe, you know, so you're pulling this, and they were pretty crappy. So I literally, I thought, well, we'll get it better later, and then I'll make copies for everybody. But we kind of went past that. So the only copies that existed, I had one that I sold to the guy I used to work with for $4. Back at the, so that was one of them, and I know he sold it, later and made some money. I think he got at least double for it. And I've got one, and I just said to John the other day that I remember a friend of mine that I at the time I would go over to his house and we would work on our cars together. And his sister, who went to school with me, I said, hey, check this out. And she was, oh, that's kind of cool. I said, oh, you can have it. So she's got one of them. And it just dawned on me last week, I remembered this, that she had one. And I sent her an email and said, do I remember correctly, or did you have one? And she said, I 100% know that I still have it. It's in a storage unit somewhere. And I said, well, if you ever decide you want to sell it, or, let me know. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if we did 3 or 4. Did we give one to Bill Erickson? Do you guys remember?
Oh, no.
I
Rutherford
think
got
he
one,
had a
but-
tape.
Yeah, that's right. He had a cassette tape.
Or cassette, or did he have an 8-track? No, I guess he had a
No.
cassette. I mean, we wouldn't have made an 8-track.
Jeff,
huh?
those the acetates, they actually begin to deteriorate immediately, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when they're cut from the mastering lab, I think they've got to be rushed to have them to be plated. So those been sitting around for a long time, and I don't know how they would even play anymore.
Oh, and when you played them, even then, they sounded horrible. Just horrible.
Crackly.
But it was the fact that we had something we called a record that was cool.
right.
Yeah.
See, that's right. That we want to say we have a record, and the other jump. Then we try to do it with the next. Oh, well, we did it with one Versailles, and then we're going to do it with Bazooka, and we didn't have the money. We went back to Gary, and I went back to school.
And our drummer quit right after we finished recording, so it didn't make sense to press
That's
press
right.
Bazooka.
Yeah.
So
And so
that-
we
that-
wanted to say we have. It was like what high school bands do. We said, well, high school bands can have they just go to a place and say print this. So that's what we could say. And also we say, listen, take this home and listen to our material. Come to see us if you want, whatever. But you play to 50, 60 people, loaded people in a bar, and they don't remember anything. So we say, well, here it's like that's our business card. Take it and get to know our material. That was important to us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, none of us had ever played live before. When you think about that, that was our only entrance, only possible way to get into the record biz is to go straight to recording. When back in those days, we didn't play live, and it wasn't our strong suit. If it was, like most bands, that's what we would have done. But the only way we could dive into this, because we could barely play our instruments for one thing, that would help if we could play our instruments. Recording was perfect. We could, punch in and edit and all sorts of things to cover up what we didn't know. It was all smoke and mirrors. Still is.
What's that you say? Taking her away, done things with her that I could never do. Don't try to phone, leave me alone. I'm in a world with no one else but me. I've got it down and I've come around where I don't care what you do now. No, I don't care what you do now.
We've already talked about Heads or Tails. This was like, Gary, were you kind of bummed that they put out this album when you were in France? So they had a record out and you weren't on it?
I was extremely intimidated. When they sent me a cassette, and there was a postal strike at the time in France where I was going to school, Versailles. And I finally got it. And when I heard it, I thought it was a joke. I thought this was some other band. I was just blown away that things had gone to the next level. And yeah, I felt really left out and intimidated. In fact, when I came back that summer, we recorded Bazooka, the next record, and I didn't even want to sing. I was intimidated by how good those guys were, and I was always iffy about my vocals anyway. So I know I was just absolutely shocked. I loved it, but I sure would have liked to have been part of it.
It was pretty it wasn't any like quintessential thing. I mean, I'd come home, I was going to school, I was in Champaign, and Jeff was at home, and Jeff had he had the machine, and he was out of the house, and he's living with a drummer, and he knew how to do things. And so I'd come home to see my girlfriend at the time, and he'd say, "Hey, check this out." I go, "Oh man, yeah, wow." You know, he could play loud and distorted and everything. So I said, "Well, yeah, I'll try to get something together." I always call my acoustic bedroom songs that I wrote in my little room at school. But also, I think there was just a lot of goofy. We just did things that, as I don't know, like Jeff said, "Hey, listen to this. I did this thing, this instrumental." I said, "Oh, so kind of sounds Chinese. Let's call it Egg Roll Rock. Yeah, let's put it on there." Just silly things, or even banjo. I mean, it was not to be this big, statement, and it was more just goofing around. And
I mean,
what we wanted to do was say, "Hey, look, Gary, we didn't forget this. We didn't
yeah,
forget
we
it."
wanted to prove that we were serious about
Yeah.
it to Gary. And,
Yeah.
and then we wanted to surprise him, but like John said, I mean, a lot of the songs were, because at the time we would use any instrument, anything we could make noise with was fair game. If it was a banjo, if it was a kalimba, if it was a pair of scissors, it didn't matter. We'd clank on. I remember there was a song, I don't remember which one, where it was the bell of the desk lamp that was being tapped on for some kind of percussion sound, because we just didn't have that many instruments, but we knew we liked the variety of doing all these different things. So it was, and it was a learning experience. The drummer was a friend of mine from high school, and he was really a good drummer. And so we both moved out of our parents' houses. It was our first place together. We couldn't afford to neither one of us could afford to live there by ourselves. So when we moved in together, we split the rent, and we set his drums up in the living room, and the recording gear was in the kitchen. And call it a kitchen. I mean, it was just this tiny little.
Jeff, he had a good name too, right? He had a good name.
La Cabane? Oh, Barry Shoemaker. Yeah, Barry Shoemaker was the drummer.
Switch on the radio, and what do you hear? Music goes in one ear and out the other. Dials spins round like the scenery, round, 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 round. It's gotta come out bitter. It's gotta come out sweet. All you want is glitter. Time for some new meat.
And he was the one that had a copy of this junior high marching band that he was in on album. And I said, how did they do this? And I thought, well, there must be someplace. And I looked on the back, and it said, I think it was called the Chicago Pressing Plant. And there were two vinyl pressing plants in Chicago. And you could, we always thought that you had to be on Warner Brothers to be able to, or CBS to be able to get records pressed.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, you could just send them, $500 and get some records pressed. So we thought, well, let's try it. And One Versailles was important to the learning process. By the time we did Black Vinyl Shoes, we knew the mistakes we had made on One Versailles.
Yeah.
And so it was a much different thing. John and Gary doing graphics, and I was doing printing at the time, so we were able to do all these inserts and different things that we really wanted to pack that record and make it look as professional as possible.
How many copies did you press of One in Versailles and Bazooka, for that matter?
Bazooka never got pressed.
Oh, Bazooka never got pressed. That's
No.
right. That's right.
Yeah,
Well,
not
those
until
things-
2012, the Numero Group released it on vinyl.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But originally, I think, was it 300 copies of One Versailles?
Yeah, I think it was $300 for $400. That's
Yeah,
what I
that
remember.
was
Wow.
the least amount you could possibly
Yeah.
do. Was 300.
And we didn't
and-
even, I mean, the cover, we just slit because they were white shrink wrapped. So we
Mhm.
slit the thing, and that's when we tucked just a printed. Did you have them printed, Jeff? Or what did you have those printed? Or you went to Kinko's? I don't know. Then we just, then we had a lyric sheet, and I was into some unintelligible hieroglyphic writing that you can't even read. But anyway, so we put See, what we want to do, all the things that we liked about other, music that got us going, and even to have an insert or a sticker or whatever. So that was part of every time we would do a project, and even with Elektra, we'd say, well, we got to have the lyrics, we want this, we want that. But what happens is, if you get a album from George Harrison, and he can have a 4-color poster, well, they're not going to spend that money on, 4 monkeys from Zion. So that's what we found out when we were on Elektra. We found out, oh, it's good. You're going to get bare bones. You're not going to get all this extra,
Mhm. And of course, Bazooka was Gary's on that. So you guys recorded that when Gary came back. The big album that obviously really did something for you guys was Black Vinyl Shoes, 1977. Probably one of the greatest independent rock albums of all time.
I didn't mean to call and shake you up, but there was something I had to say to you. I always fought for me to try to get it through. I'm
The songwriting is amazing. The thing is it has so much atmosphere in it. So when Gary's singing, what is it? Is it 20 below? It's so cold. Or it sounds like he's cold. I mean, there's so much.
Probably were,
Because there's so much atmosphere on that record, and because of the atmosphere, it's the emotion that comes out. And so whether or not you guys were going through girl problems at the time, it felt like you were going through girl problems at the time. And it's just jam-packed with great stuff. Of course, this album, you guys put it out yourself with this cover. Could you tell that things were starting to happen, that people were getting interested?
Oh yeah.
Was Greg Shaw was go ahead and take it, but Greg Shaw was the kind of, that was kind of the beginning of, that's how we got turned on to Gem.
John and Gary were really plugged into reading reviews in magazines and Rolling Stone and Crawdaddy and Cream and things like that. So as we would see someone review a record that we liked, if it was Ziggy Stardust or if it was Emmett Rhodes, we would make a note of the name of that writer. So by the time we pressed up Black Vinyl Shoes, and this, Ronnie, this answers your question on how many we pressed. Initially, we did 1,000. And of that 1,000, we had a list. We had accumulated a list that we had taped on the wall. You guys remember that? And we would cross it off when we would send them a promo copy. We gave out 300 copies to the press. By the time things started happening, we knew it was happening because one writer that we would send an album to would say, hey, I know 2 other guys that would really like this record.
Yeah.
And so it just started to web out like that. And that really became our biggest promotion was the free press.
The independent labels are really, they have to dig deeper to find things. The major labels are much harder to get through. So you kind of have to go through the minor league system, I guess, in a way. So PVC and Bump, they read all these reviews. Company like Elektra really, I'm not saying they never read them, but that wasn't their main concern. And because they didn't really have to dig as deep. So that's why we had that interest from the smaller labels initially.
Well, it's funny because you mentioned about, reading all these reviews and stuff. That's how guys like Ronnie and I discovered Shoes. Then with Black Vinyl Shoes, then you put out a single on Bomp, which was Tomorrow Night, and okay. How did you come to Elektra's attention?
John and I were just talking about that the other day. How with the reissue, when PVC reissued Black Vinyl, it started a whole separate new wave of press for us. Separate from our initial mailings, PVC was the next step up.
Yeah.
And there were people at Elektra on the East Coast. I think Marty Schwartz was one of was he a promo guy?
Yeah. Promo guy.
And there was a DJ at WBCN in Boston named Max Ansartori, who had been instrumental in discovering the Cars and playing them on the radio. And so Elektra hired her not too long before we were signed, and she was aware of us. So when they were looking for bands to sign, the guy that signed us, Kenny Batiste, who was vice president of the company, went to New York and was like, "Hey, what's the word on the street? What do you hear?" And our name popped up because these guys were, I think Marty said he was in Bleecker Bob's, and they were playing it in the store at the time. And so that's how he discovered it. So it's so happenstance. I mean, that's the fun thing about it, I think.
And you have to remember that they were flush with the success of the Cars. Now, that first Cars album, I want to say, did 5 million. I mean, that happens now. I'll hear I don't know, rap or whatever it is. I'll say, "Hey, he just did 12 million." I said, "Who?" But then it was insane. The Cars were like this. They took a chance with a brand new act, and whammo, it took off. So they said, "Hey, let's get the next one." And like you said, Marty was very he was a promo guy, but I think Kenny Batiste, who was also a promo guy, he listened to Marty. I don't know how much Kenny, as he put his reputation on the line to get us signed, you could say, but he was trying to work his way up the ladder to A&R. See, that's where he was going. So we were just part of that thing, but just right. I mean, things were aligned in a way that I don't think could happen today, or maybe they do happen today, but boy, it talk about being in the right place and right time. We weren't sitting in a drugstore waiting to be discovered, but it was a record that no one told us to do, that was just snowballing in this kind of real homegrown way. So it was somewhat organic in the way that it all happened. And also we didn't have management. We got a manager after we signed with Elektra. That was the opposite of what bands do. Bands say, "I'm going to get a manager to get me a deal." We said, "We got a deal. We got to get a manager, I guess. We got to get somebody that's the liaison between the record company and us."
We sent out cassette demos to labels just like everybody went through the regular channels. We went out to LA and we knew Elektra wanted to sign us. And as we're negotiating, Capitol got word of it, and suddenly they're in the picture and they're offering to beat anything that Elektra would do. And we thought, no, our loyalty is towards Elektra now. They're the ones. You're only after us because Elektra wants us. So
they obviously understood you.
Yeah, right. And so when we got home, we see that we got a rejection notice from Capitol from the demo that we sent earlier.
So
in other words, their standard procedure was to reject shoes, and the A&R person that was trying to get us to sign had no idea that the tape was sent.
Too late to see, too late to let you run away. Oh, I should have known you'd slip away.
Before we continue, I just wanted to mention to our viewers that we're not going to go completely, totally in depth because, I mean, these guys don't have all night. But I did want to say that there is a history of shoes. Boys Don't Lie. This is a great book. It tells you the whole story of the band. We're here to talk and to celebrate the guys in the band and celebrate their music. Again, we appreciate them being here. Even though we're not going to get totally in depth here, let me tell you right now that this album saved my life. Literally, the 16-year-old in me with a broken heart, the little teenager, I spent many hours knowing that there were guys out there who understood what I was going through. And somehow through this album, I could sense hope that I could get through what I was going through. And still to this day, this still helps me get through bad times. Wow. And this whole catalog does, but I'm saying that this was really the first one. Then I went backwards to Black Vinyl shoes. But this was just really a turning point and astonishing accomplishment, an amazing collection of songs. How do you guys feel about the term power pop?
Well, it's not. Here's the thing. It's great. It's great to be called something.
Yeah.
But no artist wants. As soon as you say, "Hey, are you a folky?" Well, then they're going to plug in the electric. Dylan did it. I mean.
Yeah.
So I don't think that we're. Here's another way I describe it. If a band says to me, "Hey, man, we're power pop," I'm a little apprehensive because I say I can pick out songs that I say are power pop, but I don't know if I would call that band. I mean, the Beatles have power pop songs. The Who have power pop songs. A lot of bands have power pop songs. Rundgren does. Is he power pop? Not all the time. So I think,
Yeah.
And we too have other influences.
I hear 10cc in the harmonies.
Very astute.
I want to say too, before we move on from present tense, the record obviously had huge support from Elektra, from them letting you make the record you want to make. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
It sounds like shoes, right? It's not. But they made several promo items for this record, which I'd like to run by you here. First off, we have these. Can you see that? The stickers.
Wow.
I guess these are made to be on the floor, which wouldn't have lasted in a record store, but yeah, this would walk you to present tense where it was in the record store.
Yeah.
There's that, and then there's the shoehorn.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
Do you guys have this stuff? Do you guys?
Those are very rare.
I
Yeah.
don't know if I do.
I might have a.
I might have a couple of shoehorns, but I don't know about the stickers.
Yeah, I don't know if I have any stickers.
Jeff doesn't need stickers. He has the acetate of heads or tails. So
Yeah, that's true.
That's
You got
true.
yeah.
They
There's
use those stickers on the sidewalk leading into Tower Records at the time.
Yeah.
wow.
But and like I said, they couldn't have lasted more than a
No.
couple
you know, 'cause-
hours, right? Yeah.
Now, what was that thing you were just showing, Ron?
Yeah, what were
Oh, this is it's a pin. It's a button, deluxe button. But so yeah, they made a lot of items for you guys for this record.
There was also a small enamel pin that had a pair of like
Oh,
Saddle shoes.
saddle
That's
shoes,
right.
yeah, brown and white saddle shoes.
But
And
but
then
I think
had the
that-
Elektra logo on the back.
yeah.
of
Says-
the pin.
and I think that was something they found a company that already had this shoe, and I or maybe they had a pair, or maybe they doubled it up. But yeah, and then they just engraved or put stamped shoes, the Elektra logo on it, so that that was a thing. And also they had a big poster of the album cover, very tall, and then there was those banner that just said "Slip into our shoes." They remember that?
Right, yeah.
That was just
Wow.
just a print
Pale
thing.
blue, pale blue, yeah, I remember those.
So no, they were doing it.
I was gonna say, Ronnie, I got something I know that you don't have. When we played it, when we were touring after Tongue Twister, we played in Canada at El Mocambo, and we were walking past a record store the day after, and they still had the poster in the window, and it was like a, I don't know, 2x4 poster board. It had the album cover and said "Shoes at El Mocambo," and I asked him if I could have it, and I don't know, it's probably one of a kind type of poster. So I know I got that up in the attic somewhere too.
Wow.
what? I'll send you my address, Jeff.
Karen, there were times when all I thought about was how to get you caring. And Karen, I felt blessed to be alone with you inside your parents' bedroom. Do you remember?
So let's go real quick on to Tongue Twister. You guys toughened up your sound. Was this closer to what you sounded like live?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I know there was a conscious effort when we did that album to not do the as big a background vocal thing.
Yeah.
And so what we did was, if it was She Satisfies where Gary sings lead,
Mhm.
then John and I would do the background vocals with, so there was more, I guess you'd say, distinction of
Mhm.
who was doing which part. Where the background vocals on Present Tense were were great and massive, but it was sort of this
Faceless kind
wall of faceless vocals, which we still
Mhm.
kind of love that too. Like I said, 10cc all the way.
Yeah.
But there was a conscious effort on Tongue Twister to kind of strip that stuff back and try a different, because, you know, we were thinking, hell, we got a 10 album deal here with Elektra. We got plenty of time to stretch out and experiment,
Yeah.
Yeah.
not realizing how fickle record labels are.
Yeah. On this record, I think that, of course, She Satisfies was really big on KROQ. It got played quite a bit. Again, there was promo items. Ronnie, do you have a promo item? I think, wasn't there a mobile?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I do
cutout.
have one of those. I don't have it handy. I
Oh,
remember I
okay.
ordered that off your website like 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
You must have had some extras. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Elektra closed
Yeah.
the West Coast office in, what year was that? 85, 84. They sent us a lot of promo stuff that they had. They were just going to toss it, so they gave it to us instead. And that's where those posters came from. We got some singles from them, and for present tense, they had binders full of national promotions that they had done, of people sending in pictures, like you were saying, of their shoes or telling a story. And it was like, win dinner with the guys in the band. And we look at each other like, nobody told us about this. You know, we never did that. So they would run these promotions unknown to us. And they would have pictures of all these displays. So it was really interesting to see how much promo they did on the first record in contrast to how much they did on the second record.
And
that's
then
amazing. They sent you that stuff, by the way. That doesn't happen in the major
No.
label world. But the band members are the last to get anything. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, remember
that's
Ronnie is in a band called the Muffs.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure that
Love the
they've,
Muffs.
yeah.
oh,
Hey, Ronnie, look at that. These guys
I-
know. I don't even know who you are.
no, I can't even comprehend that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But thanks for hearing of us, you guys. Appreciate it.
Oh,
Absolutely.
But see, they've done promo stuff of the Muffs, and Ronnie says the band never got that stuff.
Yeah.
Ronnie had to
Yeah,
buy
I
it
had
at
to-
like record swap meets.
Exactly. No,
Yeah.
being a collector and stuff, I knew to grab quantities of stuff when I could,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because we weren't on the mailing list. I'll put it that way.
I think that there was somebody, and we're not sure who, some people that thought we got a raw deal and they felt bad for us. And so I think there was somebody looking out. I don't think, normally you wouldn't get any of that stuff back. But I
Yeah.
think maybe somebody said, hey, man, these were nice guys. We liked them. So let's, instead of tossing everything, let's send it back to them.
Yeah.
So, because you're right.
Yeah.
We got boxes of these. I mean, the cutout tongue
Mhm.
twister was huge. So it was all these boxes, and there was like 25 in a box or something.
Mhm.
We had
Mhm.
I don't know how many boxes we had. We sold them for years. We got slides from photo shoots that they had in a notebooks so somebody was on our side.
You're running like the sea of the dreams you lost when you disappeared. The story's clear. I hope it's one and it won't be over till you see the fire's gone. It's a burned out love. The fire's gone. It's a burned out love.
We always got along with Elektra really well. They had some miscues. There's things they messed up, but nice people, and they liked us. But probably wasn't the right label for us, to be honest. They were so
Yeah.
used to instantly creating megastars, and we looked at, if we could sell 30, 40,000 on the first record, that would be pretty good. And next time 60 or 70, and build up. Like a lot of the Sire bands, for example, that way. It took a while to build it up.
Yeah.
With Elektra,
yeah.
they just came out of the box that I think the guy who signed us said right when we got back from recording the first record that, this thing's going to sell, 2-3 million minimum. And we're just kind of shocked, like, oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But that was the expectation. So when that didn't happen, they weren't ready to really build the record from the ground up, to build the following, do all the groundwork. For Tongue Twister, we had the #1 airplay, according to the College Media Journal, in all 4 territories for a month after month. And Elektra, they said that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And
They didn't believe in
this is
college
perfect
radio
for
at
us.
the
This is how you build a fan base. they ignored it. They also ignored MTV. That's a semi-famous story with us, that we had airplay, and Elektra just, they thought it was a flash in the pan. There was no value to it. And the MTV was, Mark Goodman was wearing a Shoes t-shirt on the air, the VJ. And they were begging Elektra for more Shoes videos, because all those VJs were college DJs before that. And
Yeah.
we were heavy into the, we were well liked by the college crowd. So once again, they just didn't see, didn't apply to the other artists. They didn't see that they couldn't see what benefit there was. And that was a tough one. Those two things alone, or where we should have gone a different direction. But a smaller label would have just eaten that up and followed through with it.
Yeah.
But Elektra just, they were just billed for, at the biggest stage, and that's all.
Well,
Yeah.
I think too, it was back to the Cars curse. We were victims of that because we didn't do 2 million out of the gate, because, well, the Cars did. So and they were, that's exactly, Gary's right. That's what they said to us. I remember them sitting in Jeff's apartment saying, "Are you guys ready for success?" I mean, big success. That was those.
I was
Kenny's
scared
exact
when they
words.
said that. I was scared because I didn't know if that was even possible.
Yeah.
You're just, that's a pretty high number there. Can we just kind of build up to it? Do we have to meet those demands? But that's the way they played it.
They wouldn't support MTV. MTV was asking for more videos because we had actually finished the second album before MTV even came on the air. So they're playing videos from the first record, and we just finished the second.
Actually, we were playing, Jeff, we were recording the third when we found out about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. MTV hired a film crew to come in to interview us in the studio for their music news, and Elektra was still ignoring it. So a friend of ours, some friends of ours lived in Madison, and they asked us to come up and be musical guests on this local variety show thing they were doing up there. So we went up there and we thought, hey, let's use this. So we spent a lot of time editing it that night, getting it all, because we had to do it all within however many hours we were there. Edited it together, and we gave it to MTV to start playing, which they did.
Well,
and
it was the demo. It was the demo.
It was the demo of Inner Shadow, which was on the third album, and Elektra actually called MTV and told them to pull it off because they didn't issue it. So I mean, just ridiculous things like that.
And that's right after our manager went to visit the president of Elektra, and the president said, "We know all about MTV. It doesn't sell records. We own it, and we know. So we're not going to make any more videos."
The summer rain that falls on me will wash away the million tears I cry you'll never see. The summer rain. You don't fall.
When you went into record Boomerang, did you kind of know that the writing was on the wall, that this might be the last, or did it just surprise you after this came out?
Yeah, I think that, remember, we did the first one in England, second one in California, third one in Chicago. So we get closer to home and go. And basically our manager at the time, Dan, had gone in, and we find out later, I think it's in the book, that because our deal was with, like Jeff says, 10 albums, but it was 2 together.
An option,
to
an
a pack
option
of 2, an
every
option.
2.
If you pick up an option, it's two records. So we did the first 2, and I think, according to Dan, they were ready to boot us. And Dan said, I don't know what he did to get it. So, okay, they picked up the option so we could do Boomerang. Then when they wanted to break the contract, we said, "Hey, dude, we're contracted for 2." So then they were breaking the contract, so we kind of got bought out. But I mean, yeah, we were wondering, like, well, what's going to be different? What's going to be different?
But at the same time, John, if at that time, I didn't think we were necessarily, we knew we could get dropped from the label, but at the same time, the industry took a turn for the worse big time, and Elektra was one of the biggest victims. Warner came in just as our album was being released and fired everybody in the company. The guy who signed us and everyone else, except for maybe 1 or 2 people. and closed down the office in LA and moved everything to New York. So the fact that coincided with this release, it didn't have a chance. There's no promotion done on it.
Well,
They did promote with this
There you
button,
go.
you guys.
we did
Yeah, yeah,
that. Yeah.
We did that.
Oh, you
Um,
did that.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
did that.
Okay.
Well, we were teacher's pet, and they fired the teacher. What, right when
Yes.
it was going to come out?
We did that too.
We did that too.
Oh, you did that one too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, the anniversary of that is in a couple of days, isn't it? Isn't it
Oh,
May
yeah.
23rd?
Oh,
Oh. Sure.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
May
it'll be
23rd.
40 years since that show.
Oh, wow, yeah, 81. Wow.
And which is another perfect example of the politics of being signed to a label. We recorded that show, and we unfortunately, our road crew, we were on stage, so we just said we brought our 8-channel machine over to the venue. We said, plug this in, don't pay attention to it, but when you have time, once you get the house together, set the levels and hit record. Well, he hit record, but he never set levels. So the majority of the show was distorted beyond repair. But he finally set the levels right before the very last six songs of the show. And the tape literally runs out during the cheering of the last, and that's the songs that you hear. So
Yeah,
we were going to
Shoes
do
on
it and
Ice.
give it to our fan club. And we gave it to Elektra to release. We said, just put this out there. You don't have to pay us for it. Just get it out, just because we want to show people that we do play live, the band that never plays live, blah, blah.
Mhm.
And then they said, oh, well, we only want 4 of the songs. It's like, we're giving you 6 free songs and you're saying you only want 4.
But they were upset that we even put it out. They
Yes.
chastised us for, that's against the contract. You can't just, it was only for promotional reasons.
Yes, we
Yeah,
released it
yeah.
on cassette to our fan club initially. And then they decided they would give it away as a promo with a 12-inch promo along if you bought a copy of Boomerang.
Mhm.
So while we were at the mastering, literally at the mastering lab, cutting the lacquers, they were calling to say, now only do those 4 songs. And we were like, don't answer the phone. And we cut all 6 songs. And by then we knew they were going to spend more money to recut it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so we gave them the masters for 6 songs, and that's what they put out.
Hate to run. If it's over, I can't stay another day. Have to run. I'll miss you just the same. We had fun together. Don't be down. 'Cause now it's time to go. Oh, you know we have to go.
And then they screwed that up too. I mean, that was packaged separately, which they disappeared behind the counter. And then they had a bunch of them at the warehouse in Bensonville, Illinois, and it flooded. And they lost several copies of that live record from that. So it seemed like everything they were doing was a disaster.
Well, the plan was to give out, that free LP out for the first 10,000 buyers of Boomerang, I think, wasn't it?
Mhm.
I believe so.
Well, that's it for this episode of Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. Ronnie and I would like to thank our special guests, Gary Klebe, John Murphy, and Jeff Murphy from Shoes, a band that continues to inspire us. We appreciate you hanging out and enjoying this conversation, and we hope to see you back again real soon. So thanks for stopping by Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. Goodbye, everybody.
Satisfied.